Good to see you again. I hope you're all doing well. It's been a few weeks, but I've been like super busy in the studio and things have been going well. I don't know if how many of you have been on this before, but basically the thing is that it's like an open-ended question session for an hour where I'll just answer your questions, and I've got a load of questions that have come in before, like people have DM'd me, and the idea is that we do this once every week or once every other week, and I'm not trying to sell anything, I'm just trying to give back to anyone that's like a up-and-coming songwriter or a producer or mix engineer or engineer, where I can talk about all of those bits, like life and any questions that you've got. So fire over the questions. Hello Enzo, good to see you there. And I'm just going to go through these questions that Josh is going to fire over. Thank you for doing this, Josh. Shout out to Josh. The first question I've got is, how do you know when a song is finished? And that's a good question, because I guess like you become a perfectionist with anything that you're mixing or producing or writing, and I think it's a fine line between saying that something's done, not being able to move on, or putting something out that's undercooked. And I think that it's the question is really about, I think you reach a critical point with something where it's making you feel really, really good. And I think that naturally you know where the finish point is of any song. Then I think you can get into like a fear-based thing of like worrying what people are going to think when they hear the song or the mix or the production. And I think that then when that takes over, you get into this kind of doubting everything, which in some ways can be healthy if you're like road testing a song. Like the way that I think about my songs and productions are that I want to kind of road test it. I want to sort of train with it. I want to put them in the ring and just see like sort of how fit they are. I know that sounds weird, but just to kind of, and I always listen to songs through like the lens of if I really hated this sort of music, what would I think about this? And I remember working on the Stormzy's Gang Signs and Prayer record and thinking that, like, wanting to get to a point where if you hated rap music or if you hated grime, you would listen to that and be able to just go, well, I'm not actually into this music, but I can't really knock the musicality. I can't really knock Stormzy's performance. I can't knock Stormzy's energy and his passion and his songwriting. So I think that's a good place to be, because I think obviously the other end of perfectionism is where you're putting stuff out and it's actually just not very good. So you'd never want to do that. So the answer to how do you know when a song is finished is you've got to feel it, and you've got to play it in different or perform it in different environments where maybe you're not just in front of those two speakers on your own. Maybe you could play it in the background while you're having dinner, or play it with someone else in the room, and just get a feel for how you're feeling about it at that point. Because definitely been times where I've thought something's finished, and then I've been in the studio and my wife Sarah's come in and listened to it, and I've kind of immediately thought, actually that needed to, something needs to be turned up, or I didn't need to have a part in there or whatever. So that is, none of these questions are like that easy to answer. I wish there was like the answer to that was like 42, but it's not. How difficult was it to create Mountain Girl? It's a good question. It actually wasn't that difficult. The thing with the 12 Questions record is that everything was a concept. So I went into that songwriting session with the brilliant Ruel with the question was, is it too late to save the planet? And I had the music laid out, which was like I wanted like some electronic and guitar kind of stuff. And I went into the songwriting session with Ruel with this concept that was obviously the question is it too late to save the planet? But the concept that I had was actually pretty weird. Sarah and I were away with some great friends of ours in Papua New Guinea, and we saw we would like hang out a bit with the locals and try and understand like the local culture in Papua New Guinea, and like a lot of those guys are like descended from cannibals, and like it's a wild place. Like I recommend going there if anybody gets the chance. It's like an incredible place. And I remember seeing this girl on the mountain, like on the side of this hill, and she was obviously like with her family at some point, but I didn't see the family, but I just saw this literally like this mountain girl, and I thought what was interesting about it, I was wondering in this remote area of Papua New Guinea if she actually realised, and it's so beautiful, and it's so green and so pure and so fresh, and literally they're not those guys like, well, I asked them once, I did this interview with some of the locals, and I said, do you know like who President Trump is? And they said no, they didn't, lucky them. But they said, and then I said, do you know Cristiano Ronaldo? No. Do you know Lionel Messi? No. Do you know Beyonce? No. So they're sort of sheltered from all this all the stuff that we know in like Western culture, but also in terms of like the environment, they're so kind of sheltered there. And I was thinking, I wonder if they knew, well, they wouldn't know kind of the destruction sometimes that we're wreaking on the havoc that we're wreaking on the environment. So that's where that came from. So actually it's it wasn't that difficult, because Ruel is such an amazing songwriter, and she just came with brilliant melodies and really got the concept and came up with that wicked melody, and it was good. Manon, you're on this. You're on this live. I really want to get you, Manon, on this is Manon Grandjean, by the way, the most in demand mix engineer in the country, if not the world, at the minute. Manon, I know we talked about this. I'll DM you, but I really want to do an Instagram live with you maybe next week, so I can interview you and we can do like question time with Manon Grandjean, who was my engineer for a good 5 years, and you may be putting that laughing emoji, Manon, but next week we need to see if you're around, if you're not mixing. I mean, your Instagram seems, I don't know how you're getting these mixes out, because I just see that every day on the Instagram feed. Here's another mix by yours truly. I mean, you must have like 5 people working for you now, because the mixes are coming out and they're sounding nice. So congrats to that. But I've definitely got a minimum of 12 questions for you next week if you can do that, Manon. I think everyone would love to ask this award-winning, incredible engineer. I owe so much of like the sound of my records and the good times that we had for like 5 years to Manon. So Manon, if you're around next week, then I could tell Manon's got 5 assistants, which is good, and you're up for that, which is good news. So next week, or maybe the week after, we'll have to schedule it, but Manon Grandjean on the IG Live to answer your questions, tricky questions about mixing. I've got a few questions, Manon, that I'm very looking forward to that. Next question is, I've been in a creative block now for 2 months as a producer. Any advice? Okay. I found that a lot of people are in lockdown have been had a block, and I think that maybe it's down to not being able to obviously get out and meet people and socialize and just be like the rhythm of life is just being kind of disturbed. And I think like for some people it works and some people it doesn't. I think with any creative block, the thing to not do is to like panic. And I think the thing to do is to try something different. And I was going to show you something then, if I brought them in. One sec. Let's see if I've got these. This is it's a good set of cards and a good story. If I have bought them. One sec. I can't remember where I put them, as usual. Drawers of life. No, that would have been great. Sorry, that would have been great if I found them. Basically, these cards I've got from this amazing guy called Brian Eno, and I'll remember to bring them in. I don't know where I've put. Sorry, one sec. I'm sure they're here. Sorry, guys, can't find them. It's called Oblique Strategies. Anyway, you can Google it and just get a set of these cards, and it gives you these strategies to like get yourself out of a creative block. And it can be like try another medium, or turn the screen off, or things that are a bit more profound than that, but just different ways to get yourself out of that creative block. So that's Oblique Strategies by the great Brian Eno, who I talked to the other day, who's like the most amazing guy, and an artist called Peter Schmidt. And they basically came up with these cards, and you literally just take a card and try and do something else, which I think is really good. So if you check those out, that would be good. But I think like creative blocks, don't just take the pressure off. I think like we all go in waves creatively in terms of how inspired we're feeling and how uninspired. So I would say buy some art books or do something that's different, like learn a different skill, like just maybe try drawing some stuff. I think that would be good. And I think maybe try creating for like 10 minutes a day. I've been doing that. Well, I create for most of the day, but actually I've been trying this thing where I literally set the stopwatch and I do 10 minutes of like portrait painting. I'm a really bad artist, but it's interesting that it like opens you up to like visuals and perspective, which actually can work with music. But then I'll make a beat in 10 minutes, and the only rules are that it has to be something completely fresh, and that it's like there's melody and some kind of drums or whatever. So I think that's another thing I'd definitely recommend. Just do small amounts, but do it every day, because I think sometimes you put that pressure on where you go like I've got to write this song. Actually, just do a beat and just do small amounts of stuff and really take the pressure off and have fun. Like don't stress it, because the amount of great songs anyone's going to write or pieces of work that anyone's going to come up with in their whole life is obviously subjective, but it's not going to be that much. So like always aim for greatness, and I don't think that you've got to go like 2 months is actually nothing. You know, you can be creatively blocked for like a year, but maybe that's I don't know, the universe telling you to just go in a slightly different direction. And then when you come back to music, you're renewed and you're refreshed. So actually, I think it's usually a sign that you need to be refreshed. Really creative blocks. So good luck with that. Any tips for full sounding rhythm section using bass DI and drum samples? Full sounding rhythm section using bass DI and drum samples. Maybe that's one for Manon next week, but let me see if I can answer that. I mean, there's a lot to that. Bass DI, full sounding, I mean, if that's a live bass, I assume that we're talking about because of the DI. then I would say that there's plugins that you can extend the low end. So like bass sub plugins, or you put something underneath the bass, like a sub bass, an octave below. That will definitely help it sound full. Drum samples. If these are drum samples underneath like a main sounding drum kit, then it's full sounding is, to me, is about extending the range of what maybe a live drum kit and a normal bass guitar can do. I mean, a normal bass guitar, to me, a live bass is prominent around 120 hertz, and a live kick drum is probably in a live kick drum is probably like 80 hertz. So there's stuff beneath that, especially in modern speakers, that you want to capture. So the bass, you can probably on most speakers hear like down to sort of 30. So I would say I'm usually putting subtones beneath my kicks, my any live kicks. I would put subtones that go down to 30 or 40, and the bass, usually an octave below a normal bass if you want it to get full. And then I think on the other side, if we are talking about live drums, you can actually add a bass 2 octaves above, whether you're playing the same line on a synth or you're on whatever, whether it's like a octave up or some other string instrument. And I think the same with drums from a frequency point of view. I was doing something recently where the snare was like in that kind of mid-range, and I'll often add some white noise from like a signal generator on. I mean, we're getting into super sort of mixing stuff, which Manon next week can definitely fill you in on. But where you send the snare out to another channel, and that generates, or another channel that is generating white noise, and there's a gate on it, and the snare basically opens up the gate of the white noise. And that's a really easy, because that's kind of like pure sound, that white noise. So that is a good way of getting above the sound of the snare, and you can just mix that in. And so full sounding rhythm section, I guess, below, in where actually the rhythm section is, like look at those main sounds, take out the frequencies that you don't need, like super low, like rumble of a live bass. It's better if you just cut that, well, if you want it sounding full, and then extend it some other way. So hopefully that helps you, and you're getting your full sounding rhythm section there. If I'm sending music out, should I keep the email short or include a cover letter? How important is the about me when sending music? There's a good question and a difficult question. I guess it just depends. It depends who's listening to it. I mean, like personally, if I get music, I really want to really just hear the music and just get a very short thing. I think that if you're thinking like you've got to, I think we all have, well, I'm sure everyone has like email fatigue, whether it's even just like the amount of spam that we all get, or just the amount that we have to read. I think now, like we are in like the information age, and like we're just bombarded by so much stuff. And I think that's if you're sending stuff out and people are already bombarded and there's just loads of information, I think like just maybe some really cool bit of artwork that you're sending, and just great music, I think will always come through. And then just a good way of contacting you, so I reckon maybe no cover letter, just a really cool bit of artwork. And I mean, if we're talking about I don't know where you're thinking about sending this music, but let's say it's email, I would say keep it short, but just keep it very sweet. What's your favourite instrument to play? That is a interesting one. I'd say when it comes down to it, it's going to be the guitar, because that is like my first love. And I think I can never really escape the love for the guitar. You know, whether it's classical guitar or you know, electric or acoustic, or I think that always comes back to the guitar. But I think the keys to me, where you can have that variation of piano, or you can obviously play strings on the keys, or you can play like this. Check this out. This is a Moog memory Moog, and this is like an original 80s synth. When you turn it on, it sounds like it's, I don't know if you can hear that, but it's this huge old fan. And when you input, when you input the patch, it's like you have to do it like a supermarket kind of checkout. There's something brilliant about that. So I mean, I love synths, I really do, and but I think in answer to your question, it's got to be the guitar. And the guitar is so like iconic. I think that you know, different effects, and there's different tones that bring out different emotions, and it's so varied, you know, from like clean, even electric, you know, clean, to all manner of distortion, through to like thrash metal, or yeah, I think the guitar is the one for me. What was it like working with Easy Life? I love those guys so much. I really do. I met them like a long time ago, 2016 or 2017, and we hit it off. They're immediately, like, they're from Leicester. I'm from, not from Leicester, but I support Leicester City, and so I know that sort of area. And I love their music. I love their musicality. I love their humour. I love them as people. Rob Milton, who's now become a really good friend of mine, is a great producer, and he's like the guy he's like the extra member of Easy Life, and we really hit it off. And then, so we worked on like a couple of things on the Easy Life record, and then I've worked with Maury on another thing, but we worked on $1 Million Bill together, which was just incredible. I had this like weird kind of section at the end of $1 Million Bill that I just really wanted. That's a switch up kind of section, and I really wanted Maury to do something on that, but I had no idea what he was going to do, and he like played me back what he'd done, and they just absolutely smashed this section, and like screaming down the mic, doing something that like I've never heard him do before, and it's just so like angsty, and it's so angry, but it's so melodic, and it's so heartfelt, and it's so kind of funny, and just like everything I love about Maury, over this like mad sort of Steely Dan sort of fusion music. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's weird. And he, yeah, like smashed that. So I absolutely love working with them. I think their record is pretty soon going to be coming out, so cannot wait for that. And definitely check the album out. I don't know what it is. I don't think they've even released what the name is of that record, but definitely check it out. How do you mix your music so well? That's subjective, but it's very kind of you to say. But sometimes I think the mix is, well, it's kind of you to say, but it's always a thing. It's something that stands out to me. Well, that is very, very kind. How do you mix your music so well? I mean, I've been through the in the trenches with mixes. Believe you me, it's not something that to me comes easily. I mean, I work with some tough people. I mean, I remember working with Craig David back in the day, and I mean those records that Craig used to love, those R&B records, Donell Jones and Joe, are like so like hi-fi and so bright and so wide, and the bass is so nice on them, and the vocals sound so crisp, that when I was just starting off, and there wasn't really like the processing power in plugins that there are now. Like now there's many things that you can get, and samples are generally brighter, so you kind of like almost pre-mixed. Whereas in those days, I remember like smashing EQs and just trying to get stuff sounding good, and then you put too much EQ on, and then it would sound really harsh, and he'd just go backwards, and then I'd send the mix off to him, and he used to come back and, like, with all the love in the world, but he used to say, like, well, Manon, actually, you're just taking the words out of my mouth. Like, he used to say those vocals sound like they've got a duvet on them. So, and actually, when I listen back, he was right. Like, the mixes were very woolly, and were very, like, there wasn't a lot of punch to them. He'd want those vocals super bright. I remember just EQ after EQ after EQ, thinking this can't get any brighter, and then he'd say they sound like they've got a duvet on them. But that's the tough knocks of mixing. And then sometimes I spend like days on a mix, play it to Sarah, she'd be like, the demo sounds better, what have you done? It's not. So it was a long journey. So when you say that the mixes stand out to me, then that's super kind, and I really appreciate that, because, you know, I'm a songwriter and a musician and a producer first and foremost, but the mixes for me were like, I would often back in the day I would often send mixes out to be mixed, and I think that because I was just starting, like I was an unknown producer, and I don't think there was probably much budget for the mix, I used to get these mixes back, and they would just sound like not the way I wanted them to sound, and I thought they sounded, pretty terrible. But then sometimes the record company, because they paid the money, were like, oh, but we're just going to go with it, and it would kill me. So I was like, I can't have this. I'm just going to have to learn to mix myself. So I went to did an online course at Berkeley, and like any information I could get. Like Dave Pensado was a great teacher from stuff I could get online. Like he's a great guy for sharing information online. So I would just try everything that he would suggest to try and make these mixes better. I remember getting a pair of Genelec speakers that were the way you could tune them to the room, and that was the first time where I could actually hear stuff sounding good, and then mix some records that did really well. Sorry, my things keeps going off. And that was a good moment. So I think it's about developing your ears. And then I did a course that was called Train Your Ears, which actually at the beginning was like a CD set where you had this guy asking you about frequencies. So I think if this is if there's anything I could pass on, then that app called Train Your Ears, which Manon a few weeks ago, I remember you helped me out with that because I couldn't remember it, but where literally you're listening to white noise, and you have to go through all these things to know whether like 360 hertz is being cut or boosted, or 5k is being cut, and you really know after that, you know your frequencies, and you can walk into a room and just go, it's feeling a little harsh in the 2k area, cut that from the strings. And so, but I got to the lovely point with Manon, that where Manon was just smashing it, and obviously Manon now as a mix engineer, Manon, incredible mix engineer in your own right, you're smashing it. So so that's incredible. So I had the luxury of knowing that Manon would mix great things a year, 2 years ago, for that period of time. But then when I mixed my record, it was so personal to me, and it was such a process of like a massive process. I mean, I posted something the other day which was basically the question on how much is enough, how many mixes are enough, and I looked at the mixes on $1 Million Bill, and that was 68 mixes on that, which is just hardcore when you've got all the outboard. I had all the outboard going, the desk, recalls on the desk, but hopefully, well, I mean, how do you mix your music so well? Maybe we may not be talking about my record, but I'm proud of that mix from a point of view of like going in on it, and I don't think it's particularly bright. It wasn't mixed. It was meant to be mixed as a sort of record that you listen to from start to finish. And I think that with that aim, like I had the vision in my head, I wanted it to sound like warm, like kind of Pink Floyd, but with harder drums. I think that we got somewhere with that, and it's by no means perfect, but it's definitely got a vibe. But thank you about saying about the things about mixing. That means a lot. Why the name Future Utopia? I guess the first thing to say is that I definitely wanted a name that was not my name, because I think that I did want this to be something that I know people associate Future Utopia with me, but I also wanted it to be something that could also be like, I wanted it to feel like a collection of people, which it is. You know, I can't take all the glory of this, because everyone that is part of it, from Manon to Stormzy to Albert Woodfox to Martin Williams, who played the sax, to Ash Sohn, to Rosie Danvers, to Tommy Danvers, to Toby Tripp, like every musician on the record, every backing vocal, is like, to me, is like Future Utopia. That app's called, by the way, is called Train Your Ears. But so Future Utopia, is this like collection of people, and I think also if I was to associate my name with it, then people are naturally going to associate all the people that I've worked with, and I wanted this to be like a fresh thing. But Future Utopia, I wanted it to have something that was trippy and kind of futuristic, so hence future, but also like Utopia for me is a place that is like this perfect place, and it's a singular vision. In my, but it's different for everyone, which is good, because it's not me saying, well, Utopia is this particular thing. So Utopia, yeah, I guess it's kind of a common thing, but is like your view of like a heavenly place. So for me, it's a place where there's a lot of kindness and a lot of understanding and a lot of diversity and a lot of inclusion and just this sort of mythical place in my head. I guess we're all trying to move towards utopia, and I think that there's hope in that, and there's ambition, and there's progression, and there's excitement and love in everyone, like reaching a better place. So yeah, that's Future Utopia for me. Is it always better to have a sub that's inaudible to cover the lowest frequencies, or just leave it out so I don't risk a blanket sound? Let me just read that again so I understand it. Is it always better to have a sub that's inaudible to cover the lowest frequencies, or leave it out so I don't risk a blanket sound? I don't know if I understand that question. Manon, if you're still on this, you might have to help me out with that. It's always better to have a sub that's inaudible to cover the lowest frequencies, or just leave it out so I don't risk a blanket sound. So, I guess we're talking sub that's inaudible to cover the lowest frequencies, or just leave it out so I don't risk a blanket sound. If I'm understanding that correctly, then I'm thinking that that's the speaker that is going to go down to seriously low frequencies. I mean, I get if you're. Sorry, it sounded like I don't know what to talk about here, but I'm just trying to work out this question. I guess if it's speakers, then I guess you've got to go down as low as you can in your room, but with getting that tuned. Because I mean, inaudible, that's subjective in itself, because you could argue that it's inaudible, but it's still you're still feeling it in some way. I think is this maybe you? Sometimes the sub will make it murky for me, but when I take it out, I can lose the frequency range. I get that. Okay, so the fuller range that you can get, the better, because I think you need to know exactly what's going on as low as you can. I guess if in doubt, cut everything below about 25, 26, because you could be getting like, I mean, if you're recording live instruments, someone could just pick up a speaker stand while you're recording, or you just knock, like I just did then, knock something, and that is going to be super low, like 15 hertz or something, and that can actually play with your headroom on your mix. But I think that if you're putting the sub in and it's making it murky, I think you need to like check your room, to be honest, Josh, because it should complement. It should be the crossover frequencies. I think maybe there's something with that you can tune your sub so that it's not, or place it somewhere else in the room so that it doesn't feel like you're putting it in and it's murky. I think like experiment with that. You can put subs in lots of different places, but I would not, maybe listen to me on that. I would go either to an expert or just look at, I'm sure there's some tutorials somewhere on that, but maybe just getting the sweet spot is very important and all that kind of stuff. Will the music industry recover from the pandemic? I definitely think it will, because I'm a glass half full guy. So I think we all have to have hope. We all have to have the thought that like maybe great artists have been creating amazing work, that maybe when the pandemic is over, we're all going to feel this unity. We're going to coming together. Like we're going to be more understanding of each other. Yeah, I think that the actual industry itself, I think will always recover because it's such a robust industry. But I think that, you know, that on an actual practical level, maybe there's something that where artists, when we tour or when we like we always like, there's a tax that we give back to engineers that we readdress, you know, to the merch companies, to the catering companies, like all these companies that have really struggled, and the venues. Like we need to keep supporting the venues, but well, not keep supporting the venues because we haven't been able to support them, but get into the venues and maybe if we can pay a little bit more money if that's a possibility. I think it will definitely recover, but maybe there's things that we need to put in place to help obviously get people back on their feet, because it would be terrible to think that there was like sides of the industry that couldn't recover. I think we have to just be mindful of each other and like support each other on this, because it's a big industry, and there's obviously people at the top end that are making incredible amounts of money and people at the bottom end that are really struggling. So I think that there needs to be something where we can all support each other, you know. What was it like working with Arlo Parks? It was incredible. Arlo came and sang, we wrote Stranger in the Night together, and that was an incredible moment. And she is just such a beautiful person and amazing on lyrics. She carries around like, empties her bag with like full of all these books, and she's like the most incredible person out there to one of the most incredible people I've ever written with. And she's so deep and such a like positive force, and her melodies are so good. So I asked her the question, what matters most? And at the beginning she was like a little bit overwhelmed by that question, because she was thinking, well, there's a kind of question you'd ask the Dalai Lama or someone, you know, like that's been around for years, has been meditating on the Tibetan mountains or something. But I said that really this is about what matters most to you. I said, what matters at the minute? What matters most in your life? And she said, well, I just split up with my partner. So I said, well, let's write a song about that. So actually the sort of big answer to that was like a very personal relationship thing, and I think Stranger in the Night is like one of my favourite songs on the 12 Questions album. And yeah, love working with Arlo, and hopefully we'll be working with her in the future. And obviously her record is incredible, so If anyone hasn't checked that out, I'd definitely recommend that. Any advice for new artists developing a fan base without live gigs? I think regular music is important to keep putting stuff out. I think to engage, obviously, on the social media channels. I think to collaborate with other artists, collaborate with different producers and different musicians, try different things, and obviously performing where you can, like do some IG lives and do some stuff on other platforms as well, where you feel that you can perform and like do some gigs, like do your own like tiny desk concert. What else could you do? I think also prepare yourself for like when you can do gigs by locking yourself away and like writing amazing songs, and developing like your musicianship, improving your playing, improving your singing, improving your lyrics. I think it's it's like it can. I think this time without gigs can be a good time. I'm just looking at this one that's just come in. I've got a question here. What does your average daily routine look like? I reckon that was Josh that was texting that in, because my daily routine is quite a mad one. But I will tell you in a sec if that is the thing. But Josh, let me know if that was you, because that sounds like a Josh question. I have a question. I have so many song ideas and hooks on my iPhone. I don't know where to start. Do you have any advice for getting these ideas organised? That is a good question. Well, I think the first thing, because I think we all have like a million ideas on our iPhones. Go through. That my advice would be to go through and be careful, but cull all the bad ideas, all the ideas that just don't resonate with you. So, like, get it down to a manageable amount, and then listen to them again, and then just cull again, and really just, because what I found is that, out of 100, there's probably, I hate to say it, like 10. I mean, but there may be some weird, like, beatboxing in a restaurant, or some beat I can't even, when I come back to listen to it, I can't even hear it. But I think just be really strict. I think you can, if you delete them, you can always go into the deleted files in the voice memos. And once you've organised them, I think make a decision to record or develop them. Like if those ideas are like half cooked, what would you need to do to develop those ideas? How would you write that chorus? Like, could the chorus be better? What like, how rough is the idea? I mean, I don't know. These ideas may be great songs on acoustic guitar, but if there's anything like me, they could be a random like melting pot of stuff. I don't know. You're putting just literally random ideas down. So I think that organisation. I don't know if on voice memos where you can organise them into folders yet. I'm kind of assuming. Let me have a look. But yeah, I would say be harsh on it and whittle it down to the ideas, and then really go in and find the ideas that you love, and just be ruthless and just go for it on the, even if it's like 4 or 5 ideas, like I'd really go for them and develop those as best you can. I guess like getting out of the voice memo is great if you've got a computer and you can record them on something where you can like bounce a mix, however rough that is. I think that's a great thing to do. What does your average daily routine look like? I mean, there is a kind of thing to this. Some days more than others, but more often than not, up at 6, walk the dogs, have some breakfast, have a coffee, into the studio at 7, do do 10 minutes guitar playing, 10 minutes drawing, 10 minutes 10 minutes doing a new beat, 10 minutes, it sounds weird, 10 minutes DJing. I don't know, DJs at like 7:20 in the morning, unless it's someone that's been up from the night before, but 10 minutes, I said guitar playing, 10 minutes sight reading, and then probably go through my emails, then do some more work that will take a little bit longer. So like whatever project I'm working on, do like an hour of that. Then that will take me to about 9, and then 9 till 10 I usually do a workout. So I do a Peloton, which is my new thing that I love, and then quick shower, and then I usually have a call with my manager at 10 o'clock for an hour, and then 11 o'clock, maybe more calls. The calls usually then up to about lunchtime. I usually eat lunch about 12:30, and then for about half an hour, 1 o'clock, then get into like sessions or like project work, which is longer kind of stuff. But I must admit, the thing with that is sounds intense in the morning. I mean, it's not, but everybody is different. And I mean, I think like I'm definitely a morning person. So like my superpower is how I feel in the mornings. Even if I've been up really late or like hungover or something, I'm just on it in the mornings. I don't know what it is. I just have a huge amount of energy. Thing for me then is that, so I kind of seize that with learning and talking and coming up with ideas and doing all the kind of high energy stuff and working out. And then I have lunch, and then it's kind of like because I'm up so early, like I only really work till about 7 o'clock in the night. And that's usually enough. And I guess it's a 12-hour day. But then it's sort of like a tailing off, but I'm more like meditative. I'm getting a little bit more tired, but I'm coming up with like deeper ideas. And so from 1 till 7, I'm kind of in the flow. I've got all my calls done. I've done all the things that I needed to do. I've bought like my Mother's Day card. I've done all that stuff, so I can really then concentrate on like the long project-based stuff, whether it's mixing or songwriting or coming up with production ideas, but over like not obviously 10 minutes, but longer periods of time. And then 7 o'clock, I usually go and have some dinner, and then like I listen to some music or usually watch something on TV and just basically zone out for a bit, watch a film, maybe look at some art or something, and then we go to bed super early, super boring people, but usually by 10 o'clock I'm ready then to do some reading, or just I've been watching these Ableton tutorials, which are really good at the minute because I love Ableton Live, the program. So I've been doing that before I go to sleep, and then 11 o'clock we go. 6 in the morning we're up. What's the best route for getting music to publishers as an indie artist? I mean, as an indie artist, I guess like indie as in like traditional indie, like an indie band. It's independent artist. Yeah, I guess. I guess it's finding the right publishers is probably good. Like really being honest, like in terms of, are you an indie band? Are you like going to be the Killers, or are you Doves, or are you, what kind of, are you the Arctic Monkeys? Like, and I think that would inform you like who you're going to send your stuff to. But in terms of publishers, I guess you can just find out that through, I guess, like looking at Music Week or Music Business Worldwide, like who the people are in publishers, or even I guess you could send stuff through DMs and stuff now, to A&R people. Some good A&R people around. So maybe that's the route. But I think ultimately, like a lot of these music business questions, I will always favour the side, like being a creative myself, of just focus on like great music. I know that always sounds a little bit like Puritan sort of thing, but I think that if you really focus on that, then the publishers will come. But I think choosing the right publisher, the publishers that would, I mean, for an indie artist, I think like Downtown are a really good publisher. I mean, I'm signed to Warner Chappell, so I'm obviously going to say that they're like the best publisher, which I think they are. But they're a major publisher. Would they be right for an indie artist? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I think that Downtown are great. I think that Young Turks have a great publishing label. They publish the XX and Sampha and a whole host of other great Arlo. I think Arlo Parks they publish. So yeah, pick out the right people and just get that music as good as it can be, and then find out the right people, whether you DM them and say what's the best email for you and want to send you some music, and probably just do it that way. Last question, maybe. When do I know that it's time to hand over my mix to a mix engineer? I like to think I can do it myself, but I know I can't. But I think you can. You know, don't put limitations in there. I think when you're at the point where you're literally you tried everything. Sorry about the screen. You tried everything, and you reach that point where you sort of run out of ideas. You've maybe run out of a kind of direction. That would be the point to let a mix engineer come in and say, well, okay, I've got these levels. I know what to do now. I know where this level. I think sometimes, just the fatigue of it. And I think that's a good time. But I would also really recommend when you're producing is to get a really good reference track into your mix session. You can either do this on, I don't know if you have like Ozone on your master bus or not, or there's a really good plugin called Magic AV, and that basically enables you to import any track into your DAW, and you can then just put that in and just reference it and click backwards and forwards between what you're hearing, and that will enable you to make some really good mix decisions. But if you're getting to the point where it's like you're beginning to lose perspective, and like I dare say it, at that point you can actually end up like not liking the song anymore. Maybe that's a good time to hand it over. But I definitely think everyone's capable of mixing. I wouldn't put myself down as like the world's most natural mix engineer, even if there is such a thing. I think that most mix engineers, like it's a craft that is learned, not necessarily a God-given kind of skill. Like, you can develop your ears. I think, things like piano, when you see like 3-year-old Japanese kids playing like Stravinsky on the piano or Chopin or something, there is a certain amount on that of like God-given talent. But I think that with mixing, like we can all do it. I'm just going to ask this one last question. Do the artists who are singer-songwriters like Adele have a certain number of tools to develop their songs, like favourite chord progressions, intervals, etc., creating their signature style? I think, yeah. I think that comes down to influences, and I think that you are what you eat. And I think that when I was working with Adele, I know she was listening to a lot of Carole King and like the Tapestry album, which is obviously an amazing record, and that those chord sequences. But she also loves Etta James, so like the mixture maybe of those kind of intervals, maybe it becomes like this mix of like an Etta James raw emotional vocal plus more like classic singer-songwriter chords. Maybe that was in some part you know, like the influence. But I think definitely that there's sort of tools that artists have. But I think with a lot of times, incredible artists like Adele, they're sort of inbuilt, they're sort of hardwired through lots of listening, and it just becomes like something that where you would naturally feel like you want to go up somewhere, you naturally want to go down somewhere, you naturally want to go to a certain chord, because it usually with singer-songwriters, it feels to me that the sort of drama around a certain section, when I was playing piano with Adele, she'd be looking for, like, she'd kind of know the chords without knowing the chords, so she'd be saying, no, I think it's more of a kind of dramatic kind of change, more of a, not even a bigger, she wouldn't say bigger interval, but it's kind of that chord that's kind of setting up the chorus, so it would that would sort of dictate. So yeah, I do think that, and obviously some songwriters are super technical, where they have like this sort of all this stuff in the locker, but other artists like Adele, only because you mentioned Adele, just to me just ooze, it just comes out of them, because they've sort of assimilated all that music, and therefore when it's time to create, it's this kind of mixture of lots of different beautiful things. But thank you so much for the question. Thanks for joining me, and we're going to try and get this time in with a very busy Manon Grangin, my wonderful previous engineer, who is now doing great things in the world of music. And she was doing it with me, but now doing her solo thing, which is brilliant to see. And hopefully she'll be on here with me hopefully next week. We'll let you know when that is on the feed. Thank you for joining me. Much love.